order. First thing on the agenda is approval of minutes, September 19th.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes of September 19th.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Next is addition to the agenda. I had two. One is census coordinator, and the second is building painting quotes.
Is what?
Building painting quote. Is there any other additions? Is there a second to add those two things?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Communications. I just had one communication. I was down at the Pearlie's Farmhouse Cafe, the new restaurant in West Cornwall yesterday, in time to see Kathy Weber of the Tornado Health District, and she said she was thrilled at all the changes and upgrades the new owner had done, and he was getting high marks from the health district, so that was good, and I believe they opened this morning.
Good.
So we wish them well. Any other communications? Public comments? Any public comments?
Yeah, I just happened to ask earlier when the meeting started about item 2C, and Joyce said there was a communication that was received relevant to that, and yet you didn't bring it up in the communications.
I believe we'll cover that issue under 2C.
So, but we can't comment on it because we don't know what it is yet.
Well, we've already gone past communication. We normally cover things under the agenda item, not under communication. And you can comment in number 6.
So I would also like to, since that's back on the agenda, the town meeting hall, and one of the things we talked about at the last Board of Selectmen meeting was your feeling that that had been brought up because other towns did it. I'd like you to reconsider the election of the representative to the high school, because 4 towns do elect that office rather than appoint it. We had a vote on that several years ago. It might be time to put that up for a vote again too, particularly if the main reason for doing it is that other towns are doing it.
Okay, any other public comments? Okay, 5-year capital plan, I believe. I've circulated a draft to the board. We welcome Jim Vannicky, Highway Department Forum, to our meeting, and thought it might be good to just review a little bit the work that's been done this summer, this year, where we do have some budget items in here, including road improvement, which generally covers 2 sessions of sealing roads and putting down asphalt as well. And we also have highway equipment. So we just, how'd things go this season? Were you satisfied with all the work that was done and the materials used and everything else?
Yeah, I think everything went pretty well. We found ourselves kind of at times painted into the corner with trying to get to things that need to be addressed. Now we're trying to keep up with the new bridge inventory on maintenance.
Right.
So there's plenty of work to be done. It's just trying to systematically prioritize. But we have the equipment. The money's kind of there. I mean, if we, jockey it around and make it work in our favor, save here, spend there type of thing, attitude. But I think over the last 10 years, we've been gaining through reclaiming the roads, resurfacing properly instead of paving over old damage. I wanted to do that with Clark Road and Great Hollow, but down beneath was not worth putting the extra money into it. I did some test sample digging, and it was kind of I don't know what the material would be called, but it was basically what you would dig up out of a wetland. It was a clay type of material, so the foundation's not there. So I felt bad because we've been on a roll of really doing a good job, but this year we had to pave over. It'll hold because the traffic is light, but equipment-wise, we're doing pretty well. We're looking to upgrade the road grader. We have one truck that should make it another 3 or 4 years. Other than that, the future looks pretty good equipment-wise.
So what roads do you think you'll pave and seal next year?
Definitely Allen Road. I want to finish that. I'm going to talk with Goshen. They pretty much maintain it in the wintertime, and it's pretty bumpy, so I'm going to kind of let them know that that's in our scope for next year. Sealing Great Hill, Great Hollow, Clark Road, and I still have some paving I want to do on College Street, South Road. I don't want to oil over top of what's there now. I'd rather fix it a little bit better before I spend the money in oil. And then just from there on, probably do some improvements to Yelpin Hill. I want to improve the railroad crossings on River Road, basically for road grading, so that we don't have to start and stop so close to the rails. And come up with a better overall plan so I do things, so I don't get caught up in the moment and forget certain maintenance jobs with the bridges. And so I need to come up with a better plan now of to maintain the bridges and hold on to what we have and the improvements that are being made. I don't want to go backwards.
Right.
On the list here for capital improvements is payloader for, this is the second payment for the payloader? The first one, we got the backhoe last year. Yes? We get the backhoe last year?
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah. I'm losing track of time, but.
I see a payloader down for this year for the 18-19 fiscal year. So
Right.
that's actually next year, 18-19. 18-19 is next year.
Right.
$95,000. We just started 17-18.
Yeah, I'm looking to go into, hopefully, we've been speccing, demoing. We're pretty confident on the machine that we want. We used it for a month now. And currently we're spending, this year it's costing us $7,500 to rent the machine for our screening. So I want to eliminate that cost every year of rental.
Right.
How many years, at $7,500 of rental, how many years can he get out of $95,000? It's been more than 10 years.
Yeah, the machine is targeted at around 170,000.
It's 13 years of rental. How long would you expect the payloader to last?
Our current one has been 17 years. So last year's rental was $9,500. This year was a little cheaper with the job here. So just for that one particular job that we use it for, would pay for itself in 17, 18 years.
Yeah, long time. So is that through the COG you rented it, or private?
No, just outright.
Does the COG have a rental, a payloader rental?
No.
But you said you wanted to look at replacing the grader? but nowhere on this list out through 2023 is there any mention of the grader. So how, when, where is that gonna happen?
We haven't budgeted for that at this point. I think what we'll probably do is similar to what we did with the pickup truck this year. If we have a good year and we have money left over, we'll do it that way. We're not looking to buy a new unit. I believe we bought the current grader we have now.
It's
$20,000.
$10,000.
It was $10,000 like 15 years ago, and they are out there, maybe not for that type of deal, but I think we would look at that as a sort of a surplus piece, not a major brand new piece. Similar to what we did with the pickup this year.
So if, not this coming year, but in 18, 19, you're looking at doing East Cornwall, so you're gonna seal Great Hill, Great Hollow, College Street, and South Street. I'm sure you've seen the hole. It's in the culvert at the corner of College Street. You replaced that, or did some work on that culvert a few years ago.
Right.
Now there's an actual hole in the road that
Yeah. Well,
washed
that's the
out.
thing. We're at a point where we're already almost into November. The plants are going to be closing, or it's too cold to be doing any asphalt work. So rather than get all stressed out and try to beat the deadline or do not a very good job, I figured we'd just wait, do the MC 3000 in April on the roads that are good, and then do the pass oil later in the summer, oil in July or August, and that'll give us a couple of months in the summertime to prep those roads and get them ready.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, the culverts are something that is part of this $300,000 for them to be dug up and redone. I mean, there's no more patch left in this. We've patched it 3 times.
There, generally the pipes and things are under road materials in the operating budget.
So there's somewhere
This
else.
is for
Okay.
major stuff.
Yeah, Clark Road and Great Hollow, we replaced probably, I think, just about all of Clark Road, which wasn't a lot, but we did. We did all the pipes on Clark Road, and Great Hollow, I think we did 4 or 5. The outside edges of the pipes look good, but it was that thicker outer ring, but inside was totally gone. So, and I think once again, it's down in that swampy type, wet all the time. And,
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same on College Street. There's swamp on both sides of the road. So
Yeah.
just getting washed out and that. Well, just because you were talking about doing Yelping Hill and River Road in that same year, but instead of spending money over there, it would make more sense, I think, to spend more money in your East Cornwall. If that's the focus of the 5-year plan, why spend money on Yelping Hill and River Road when it could be used over on College Street?
Yeah, the thing with like Allen Road and Yelping Hill, that wouldn't take out of the 140,000 for asphalt. I mean, we came in at 100 and, between A&J and a little bit with Metcalf, I think we're around 115. So it gave us a little extra so that we could do some patching in through other parts of town that are in need that wouldn't make it through the winter. So there is some wiggle room once. And I mentioned Yelping Hill only because that's one of our worst roads in town.
Right.
That's in need.
And are you figuring any gravel for the dirt roads out there?
Yeah, that's going on right now. We're screening, and we've made a pretty good sizable amount. So down on a gravel bank, so that'll be distributed. Like last year, most of it went to River Road. This year, it'll be probably both River Road and Flat Rocks.
Yeah. You think that quality of that stuff is good enough to be on a roadway? Has enough fines to rock and gravel to actually hold, as opposed to too much sand that just every time it rains it just gets washed off
Yeah, or plowed off, but
or plowed off?
the stuff we're making is, or that we buy from some of our vendors, is too sandy. So like last year it went on River Road, a more flatter road.
Yeah.
The material, which a lot of people are in favor of and having success with, and we are too, is Harlem Valley. That's more of what we use on the hills.
Right, so
the
that would
blocker
be more of
stuff.
what you would use on flat rocks than you
Yeah.
would on some of the flatter roads.
Yeah, or through the hemlocks and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Okay, good.
Any other questions for Jim?
Just one other question, I guess maybe for you. So last year we talked a lot about putting money into the bridges and culverts line item, and we added it in every year, and now you're taking it out. So where is that gonna go otherwise?
Oh, well, there's no money, this is all taken out because that's all covered by the bond issue that we have, that we passed this year.
Okay.
So that's why it's not in the capital plan, because there's
Okay.
no money that needs to be appropriated because it already
It's right
was
here on this one.
in
Oh,
I
that.
think it's up here in this line now.
Oh, if I added them all together,
Yeah.
13, no, maybe we could go to that one, 2,
I think.
5.
That's the amount that's left in the bond issue.
Oh, is it? So it's actually more than what we had put in.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yes. So going down here, we, because we are closer to the purchase of the payloader, and Jim is comfortable, I believe, with the model type. We did increase that up to $20,000, up to $170,000 based on what the state bid is for a payloader of that type. And bear in mind, part of its primary use too is for wintertime, loading trucks, and if we need to open up roads and stuff. It's
You're
very important.
anticipating sizing that payloader one size larger than the one we have now?
Correct.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Two sizes larger?
I don't have the specifics of one and the other, but I would say it'd probably be 2 sizes. Larger, yeah.
And we did add the transfer station skid steer back into the plan. It was in, and then it somehow fell off the page. So the one we have now is again fairly old. It was old when we bought it, and it was time for an upgrade, as it's had pretty heavy maintenance this year. So that's a new thing, and the rest of it's fairly consistent.
I think
What we had
the
before.
town buildings, we ought to increase that
Increase that,
from 20 to 30.
okay?
Because it's 30, 1920, 2021.
Right.
I think we ought to, there's just a number of expenditures that we could come up with.
Okay, so you,
Even at the bottom, the last one.
right, and I see that.
Well, then
Truck,
5 years out, then you'll see what it looks like.
Right,
Because as you
10
start to upgrade the buildings, then it's gonna have a particular lifespan too. Hopefully more than 5 years, depending on what you do. So,
I don't know.
so also we don't have the right, that number isn't right for the highway equipment. We've been averaging close to 100. And for some reason we optimistically put it down to 30, so that should really go up to 100. And town buildings there should be 30,
Also got it the year before, the wrong number there.
right?
Oh, no, listen, that's revaluation.
No, they switched it around,
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we got that. Okay, so this needs to be approved by us. Are you folks comfortable pending those changes?
So we're talking about changing this year, 1819 to 30,000 on buildings.
Right.
And no changes until the last year? No other changes?
Right.
Where we changed the highway to 100 and buildings to 30 again.
Right.
Okay.
And I did talk to Chief Scoville of the fire department, said we were plugging in $80,000 a year for the trucks, which seems to be a number at some point before town buys another fire truck. We need to sit down with the department and look at all their trucks and see what they have, what they need, what's a realistic piece to have with the manpower we have and the calls we have. So, but for planning purposes, I think 80 is a fair number. So I'd make a motion that we adopt this plan as drafted.
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question on this second page, the actual capital projects page.
Current balance?
Yeah, where we have for almost $3,300 in the senior van
Right.
line item.
Yeah.
At what point in time do we stop throwing good money after bad on that?
Well, that's capital money, and that can be used for another capital project come budget time. We can say that we are finished buying the van, and then we close out this project and reallocate that capital money. The same way with.
And then what about the maintenance of it every year? Then what do we do with that?
I think we just have to. I mean, the board's going to have to reassess that. As we know, it's costing us more than we thought it would, and then before the year ends, the fiscal year ends, we're going to have to look at that and look what alternatives are with that. But I think that's mostly a budgetary item. But we're aware that's something the board has to monitor.
So this was for this 3,300 was left over from the purchase.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions? Any other comments? So all those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Jim. Thanks for getting a lot done this summer.
Okay,
Yeah,
free to go.
free to go.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. So, next on our agenda, finding the agenda. Town meeting call. We have a town meeting coming up scheduled for, I believe it's the 27th. So we do have another meeting before that. So I did take the liberty of drafting a couple different things, items. First two are pretty routine. And we do have another meeting before we actually have to sign this. Joyce calculated how many days we have to publish it, 5 days in advance, and we're meeting on 17th, something like that. Yeah, our next meeting is the 17th, so we have time. I think we just voted on the 5-year plan. The town reports are being compiled by Barbara. So the third issue is the Park and Rec appointed or elected. We did get 2 letters, or actually 2 from the town clerk, 1 from the Park and Rec director outlining their thoughts on the board terms as currently as it's currently done, as well as reasons to appoint these positions. I think their arguments are compelling, and so compelling that I had Pearlie draft up a sample call for our consideration, so we'd have something specifically to talk about, and that's where it sits at the current time.
Gordon, can we see the letters?
So do you want to read those into the record?
I can read these now. I don't think we have to actually, they're on file. I don't think we actually have to
Can we
put all the stuff in it. What?
You can read them, but they don't have to necessarily.
Right, I don't think we have to put them per word.
Right, no.
But we just, I have no problem, just so people know what we're talking about.
It was great information that makes absolute sense that we should have had a last meeting. I mean, these letters come from the town clerk and from the park and rec director, totally shocked that we didn't agree to this change. Well, we had no information. There shouldn't be any shock involved. But once it's written down, here's the reasons why. Because it costs us this much money, because there's this much more work involved, because we have this much turnover, because of this, because of that. I mean, it all makes sense, but to just come into it, yep, we want to change it. Why? I don't know. Okay, the town clerk says we should. Why? I don't know. Well, we can't make a decision on that, but these were great. It's great information.
So moving forward, based on the information here,
Do you want me to read these letters, just so everyone there
sure, you can read
that's
them if
watching it
that's-
from home
if you
can
wanna-
hear what we got?
um,
So let's just take a minute before we debate the main thing, just to establish the record of information we got from town clerk Virginie. Dear Selectman, in my letter I sent you yesterday, I told you about the paperwork.
We
That-
should start with her first letter
Well,
and then go to the second
let's
one.
see, I don't have her first letter. I sent her second letter. First letter.
It had more of the information about her reasoning behind it.
This is the first one.
Okay, so we have 3 letters. Dear Selectman, I was very upset to learn that you have decided not to put the changes to the Park and Recreation Commission ordinance on the call for the October town meeting. Please let me explain the reason I requested the changes. I called the Secretary of State's office 2 years ago to ask a question about about a Park and Recreation position on the ballot. The attorney that I spoke to could not believe that it was an elected position in Cornwall. This prompted me to poll the other towns in Region 1. Cornwall is the only town in the region that elects their Park and Rec members. The Park and Recreation Commission seems to have a revolving door with their members. In just the past 10 months, 2 members of the 8-member commission have resigned. 2 were appointed to replace them each time someone resigns. From an elected position, I need to file paperwork with the Secretary of State's office. Then when the Board of Selectmen appoints a replacement, I need to file more paperwork. Since there is so much turnaround, I have created a handwritten spreadsheet to keep track of each position. I'm confused about the reasoning for denying my request for the changes to the ordinance. If citizens are so adamant about being able to vote for and choose who represents them on the Park and Recreation Commission, why is there not one single candidate for Park and Rec on the ballot for the November election? Neither town committee nominated a single candidate. I strongly feel that it should be an appointed position. I also believe that if the position were for 2 years instead of 4, people would more likely volunteer because it is not much of a commitment. I can sincerely hope you will reconsider and add changes to the call of the October town meeting. Sincerely, Virginie, town clerk. Follow-up letter is, Dear Selectman, in my letter that I sent you yesterday, I told you about the paperwork that I had to file every time a person has resigned or appointed. I just wanted to clarify that the paperwork is only necessary if the position is elected. If a member of a board or commission resigns or is appointed, it is not an elected position, no paperwork is necessary. Since there are no candidates at all on the ballot for Park and Rec this November, anyone that the Board of Selectmen appoints to fill those 4 slots will only serve until the next municipal election in 2 years. At that time, the terms of the other 4 members on the commission will expire also. Therefore, all 8 members will be up for election in November 2019. One reason that people hesitate to run for Park and Rec or many other town boards and commission is the election process itself. If a town committee fails to endorse someone who really wants to serve, they need to petition to get on the ballot and to get signatures from other electors in town. I believe they would feel much more comfortable if the position were appointed. Sincerely, Virginie, town clerk. Let's see. Then we also got a letter Dear Selectman, I was disappointed to hear that the discussion of having Cornwall Park Recreation Commission members be changed from elected to appointed was discussed briefly and then not approved this past September. The discussion missed touching on some very key points as why this change would be advantage to Park and Recreation Commission and the town of Cornwall. I have been director for over a year, as well as serving a 6-month interim period. I've learned a lot in this time as director and tried to expand the activities and programs of Park and Recreation Commission. Although the majority of activities are planned through the director's office, I cannot understate the importance of a strong and active board in assisting the director with the coordination and carrying out of these events. The commission is very important in providing the director with support needed to bring these activities and events to life. Helping to set up and clean up events, steer us towards new ideas, and help communicate our events to the public are key roles of the commission members. They also are the connection to the community in terms of gathering feedback and reporting back to the commission on both the successes and suggested improvements for future events. Recently, there's been a lot of turnover in the commission members due mainly to people moving or their 4-year term being up. Right now, we have a very supportive and energetic commission, although not all positions are filled. In seeking out new members to fill vacancies, some people approached have hesitated when they saw that it is an elected position. They tended to shy away. This unfortunately leads us to have continual vacancies while potentially losing some of the most enthusiastic and dedicated people for these roles. I request that the selectmen change the commission from elected to appointed position for the following reasons. 1, appointed positions may increase the likelihood of filling vacancies with individuals committed to helping Park and Recreation program succeed. 2, when there is a newly vacated position midterm, a newly appointed member could fill that role for a longer period, whereas it currently only fill a position until the next election, leading to more turnover. As mentioned by the selectmen at the December board meeting, the election process does not in recent years tend to draw a contested race for the commission members, and vacancies periodically exist. 4, a 4-year term is a long commitment for the commission in which many members are drawn because of their children's interest in Park and Rec. As life events change, their priorities, the members' commitment to the commission may have to change mid-term. 5, due to the requirement of elected position, the process of dealing with resignations and new appointments is a more cumbersome process for the town clerk than elected positions. I hope that in the reasons presented above, you will reconsider the request to change the Park and Recreation Commission member from an elected to appointed position. Thank you for considering this request. Respectfully, Jen Robert Marco, Park and Rec Director. So I think we've all learned more about appointments and vacancies on the commission by getting this all put in writing in detail. And thank them for taking the time to inform us, and
Yeah.
that's their reasoning for making the request, which is much more thorough than my attempt to explain it last time. So with that in mind, I did send the current vacancies and terms and members to Pearlie, and he came up with a draft ordinance for our consideration, ordinance change.
So we have this is the amendment to the ordinance?
Right. Well, we have a couple of things. We have,
And then this is the,
the notice, the item on the column.
Can you just add that item to the rest of the column?
Yeah, so we would
Do it
just add.
separate, right?
Right, we just put it on number 3, so he would be the new town meeting annual notice. For your consideration. And then he had a follow-up letter today explaining all this. And the thought, so there's two elements, one to be appointed, and then the second thing, because whenever you change offices from elected to appointed, you can't shorten the terms of people. So but you also want to stagger some terms. So even though it's a 2-year term, it would be good not to have everybody expire at the same time. So there's some effort has gone into keep it so half the terms would expire 1 year and the other group would expire next year.
Maybe accept this call for the meeting, what do you need?
Sure, to add it, but I think you want to take a look at it. It's tricky, let's think about it.
I'm not sure if it is or not, where that.
So
possession should be, if
Heidi
it's
made a
before or
motion
after,
to,
yes.
Oh, okay.
to add it as a number 3 item to the annual town meeting. So I would second that, and let's just carefully read that through to menu.
So it's essentially what we wanted to say. That
Well,
some will expire.
but here's my question. So, all right, so we figure it out. So we have everybody that's not up this year comes in next year, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you want 4 people and 1 alternate expiring every year, because half goes 1 year and half goes the next year, because it's only 2-year terms, so you have to go even odd
Right.
to do it. And what he has here is 4 members and 1 alternate expire every 2 years. I think you have to have it, everybody expires every year. You know what I mean? Because you're doing half your commission is going to do what we would do this year, and then half of them would expire next year. So you have to do it.
No, they're not going to expire next year, though. I mean, that's what we want to end up with every other year. 4 expiring, 4 more can be appointed. That's the end goal. It's a 2-year term.
Right.
But the 4, correct me, there are 4 members. There are 4 positions open for
Right.
election this year,
Yep.
and there's nobody running for
Correct.
those 4 positions.
Right.
So there's 4 members on the board still.
Right.
Their term expires in 19.
In 2 years. Right.
So in 19.
Right.
So if we appoint
Everybody to expire in 18.
in 1 year,
1 year.
in 18,
Right.
then we have to reappoint 4 people in 18 for a 2-year term, and then we'll be on track. Because all the expired, is that correct? Am I saying this correct?
Each-
But I think you
each
have to
4
have-
will be off, right?
4 members so tired.
You're right, Richard.
To expire every.
It's confusing, but
Right. You want to have 4 people. You want to be appointing 4 people every year.
every year.
Right.
But in the first
First-
go-around
You
is
do
1 year.
1 year, and then after that
it's
it's
all
2
for
years.
2 years.
As long as we.
And that's why that must be why he's saying it'll be appointed to either a 1 or 2-year term.
Right.
I'm only thinking this through as I'm talking it myself. So it's 1 year for the first time. And where's the ordinance?
Right. So then we have another.
But we will be appointing people in years that are not municipal elections.
Correct. Right. The board will appoint people every year. Every November, or whatever.
Right, every November after the election time.
Right.
Yeah, it's right here. Those commissioners appointed in 17 shall serve a one-year term.
Right.
Yeah, so that you end up with the every other year thing, since
Right.
everybody else is off in 2019.
This is the shortened version.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah, this would be expensive to put in the paper. Okay. Satisfied that this is clear, as clear as possible,
It's
and that
not clear, but I think it's right.
it's correct anyway. Good. So then there's a motion and a second to add this to the call of the town meeting.
And if we approve this tonight,
Right,
we can sign it tonight,
correct.
or we could,
Wait till next meeting.
or wait till next meeting having, I mean, does that cause more problem for you?
Well, you still have time. Yeah.
Right.
At next meeting,
Reasonable amount of time or a
Mhm.
crunch?
as long as we do something the next day with it. Yeah.
Right, we stay focused.
So on Wednesday, the 18th or whatever, that's, it's gotta get in the paper. You know, if we just wanna think, you know, if we wanna, is there anything else that we would add, subtract, any reason, or should we just sign it tonight and, or is it typed up officially to be signed?
Mhm. I mean, that's how he presented it, that's how it would be, yeah. Unless you want to change the wording. So we,
And the Board of Finance has approved the 5-year plan, or they have a meeting coming
Oh,
up?
they have a meeting coming up.
No, not tomorrow, but before that time.
Yeah, okay. I think they actually meet after our next meeting, but they'll meet before the town meeting, that's the main thing. So I don't have a problem in approving this motion and then sign it next time. Just get it all official. Any more discussion on this? I did hear the town of Falls Village is appointing their tax collector and their treasurer. I think Salisbury did that 2 years ago, which,
Tax collector and
And-
treasurer or town clerk?
No, town clerk, who was
Town
talking
clerk.
about doing town clerk?
I think it's,
Somebody.
Well, I
Town
think
clerk and
that's, I
treasurer?
think it's,
I
I
don't
think it's
know.
town
Falls
clerk, yeah.
yeah,
Warren already appoints their town clerk, I know that.
right, so that's another, those are bigger officers. As big anyway. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to add this to town meeting.
So, yeah, the motion is to add number 3 to the town
Call.
meeting notice, call.
And seconded.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So, next we have Flat Rocks Road Bridge. Been up there a couple times, impressed by the speed and craftsmanship of our contractor. And the word is that it's going to be open by the weekend. May not be completely paved, although I wouldn't count that out either, the way they've been going. But the word is to be open for traffic, safe. They put up the new guardrails earlier this week. Water's going through it, under it.
Yeah, the construction time frame of this project versus the Valley Road project, if it's rained 6/100 of an inch of rain in the time frame that's been being built, be surprising.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
Hasn't rained at all.
It's really been a good time
Um,
to do that big bridge.
Whereas last year, when they were doing Valley Road, they
Right.
got that deluge just at the wrong time.
Yeah,
Have you been out there since they put the guardrails up?
I was out there when they were putting the guardrails up.
Do you have any concern about how much longer they've made that run? So that as you're coming, like from my house into Litchfield, there's no pull off. And when people come from Litchfield down around
Yeah.
that corner, it's a blind corner and they fly. And there's so many times that we've had to pull off
Right.
in that pull off so they can get by.
Right.
And plow trucks and where to push the snow. That's not there anymore. Is there gonna be?
Well, what they're gonna do as part of this project is they're gonna move the power poles are gonna be removed, and so there will be a pull-off on each side of the bridge that's probably not as obvious now because there's
Still construction stuff in the way.
still construction stuff there, or an old phone pole in both places, but once they move that, I think there will be, Jim got your concern and we went
Yeah.
up there that morning and looked at it, and it looks like that'll be adequate. Fred is still somewhat concerned, being a plow truck driver and stuff
Yeah.
in there.
So it'll be all
But-
paved anyway for them, right? So they'll
Right.
be able to get through.
So it looked like there will be enough, especially when they push those poles back,
Okay.
to have good pull-offs on both sides as much as possible. There is more guardrail there is,
They just
probably-
made it a much longer one-lane
right,
bridge.
yeah, right.
So just having enough warning
Right.
time when people come flying
Yeah.
around that corner to scoot over.
Right, and we probably should talk to our engineer about, putting some sign there to tell people one lane,
A blind corner.
or,
Slow down.
one lane bridge
Nothing
there,
matters.
or yield or something at the approach,
Yeah.
there, so people know that it's not a two-lane bridge, you need to explain everything nowadays.
Not that
But I-
anyone listens, reads, or cares.
Right, but at least,
At least it's there for the policeman to say, you were wrong, it says yield.
right, some yield or something like that, yeah. One lane.
Well, the one person will be off the road and the other car will have kept
We'll
on
have
going.
fun, I know. It's just like,
Right. Courtesy. Right, okay.
it's just funny. They come around that corner like, nobody's
Yeah.
gonna be coming the other way. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of traffic on that road,
There's
so
a
more
lot of-
often than not, somebody is coming the other way.
There's a lot of traffic. Yes, so anyway, very glad, everything went
No, it's really
according
good
to
though.
plan. Yeah, I
Did a
think
nice
it's a
job.
lot. Yeah.
Nice, neat, shored up.
Yeah,
Good
and they
job.
still have to seed down the banks and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's in hand, so that's good.
Did they leave the old abutments underneath to sort of help direct the water?
There is, yeah, that channel is in there, it looks kind of unusual, but it's
Yeah.
there. Yeah, and they did do something, they've been in contact with the owner of the dam, because his dam is sort of flopping a little bit.
Yeah, it got bumped a little in the construction.
No, it was,
Was it already there?
it was already flopping
Okay.
before it started, it was well documented that.
Oh, that's good. Is
that
that why they
nothing to
came
do-
up last
no.
weekend?
It had nothing to do with the construction.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
No, they've been very careful.
Good.
So, anyway,
I
it's
think
all
he was
ready to go.
interested in getting it done while they were there
That
because
makes sense.
the equipment was already there. The big excavator, a couple of big excavators was
Water's
already there.
diverted and
You
Yeah.
know, it's all that mobilization cost is it's already taken care of.
yeah.
Right,
I think the two abutments that stayed in, Roger was saying that the engineer kept them in to use as anti-scouring.
Yeah, and it made sense.
right,
They're in good shape.
yeah. Yeah, so that's good to get that going. Barbara reminds us that we have to get all the work done in 3 years of the bond authorization, so the next ones up will be Smith Place and the gravel bank at some point, this fall. Let's tell Roger and say how to go forward with that. Jim is doing some of the the maintenance work, like linseed oil on the wooden bridges and things, so we are doing some of the in-house stuff already this year, so that's good. Yeah,
And those will all go out to bid too.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We'd have to even, probably even bid the design.
Oh, well.
The next one up will probably be Smith Place.
That's what Roger was talking about. Yeah. There was talk to the Board of Finance about looking if it's possible to reestablish a right-of-way behind the meat market
For what?
and get rid of the bridge. So you would actually not use the bridge. You'd widen the right-of-way, because the problem with that bridge is even without, Roger said he's estimating $350,000 just to put a new deck on the bridge, and you still have a rubble base, which again, you may be revisiting this in 30 years to redo the base. So I think we have to really think about that. And also with all those bridges having washed out several times last century,
It's such a
it's much narrower than the state bridge. So there are some compelling reasons to think about if you didn't have a large bridge there, it might actually help the flooding potential of West Cornwall. It's a creative idea, which may or may not fly, but again, if you're looking at $300,000 now, $300,000, 20, 30 years, it's just a significant amount of stuff, money. But anyway, that's fall project. Route 125, I've been in touch, the DOT has been in touch with us. They have been replacing the catch basins on Route 125, and they hope to start paving in mid-October, which would be really nice. In 3 days they'll have it paved.
The whole stretch?
Yep.
Nice.
So that's good news. Next is granny pods. I did get a call from Attorney Grimes saying the state legislature did pass this piece of legislation, one of their
Karen's got a question.
few accomplishments of the season, with an unusual name called the Granny Pod. So Karen is here.
I have I know it's copied the plan and zoning. I didn't get a copy myself. My office, I believe David Colbert received it, and he is out of town, but I just want you to be aware of the Northwest Hills podcast
Can you speak up so we can hear you on the tape?
is on it.
Or scoot up or something?
I will speak up.
Okay.
As you're aware, the Northwest Hills COG has fifth Thursdays. Jocelyn Ayer's been very proactive. This issue was discussed at the August fifth Thursday meeting in Goshen. We only had 4 P&Z Commission members there, which is more than normal towns have.
Yeah, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, Ginny, Jim LaPorta, Anna Tennell, and Ben Gray, as well as myself were there. This conversation went on, and Jocelyn asked for input from various towns. The town of Roxbury was very emphatic that they had already opted out. They did not want it. There was discussion about the fact that those towns that are proactive and in terms of accessory apartments, Cornwall has an excellent reputation for enacting regulations that encourage accessory apartments in this town. And the one comment that was made, it was the chairman of the Goshen Planning and Zoning Commission, and he just said very quietly, we have discussed it. It's a very interesting issue, granny pods, where in Roxbury they were not just no. He made the point that it is an interesting issue. There's a lot of extenuating circumstances, and the Goshen Planning and Zoning Commission was not going to opt out because they felt that there might be a very unique circumstance in which a citizen in the town of Goshen might need that legislation. So that was the discussion. But Jocelyn Ayer has agreed to kind of mentor towns if they want to talk about it and do some back and forth as to why other planning and zoning commissions are obviously coming up with different conclusions. So it has been somewhat addressed, and it's right now.
What was Roxbury's reason for no? What were they concerned about?
Appearance, I think, as much as anything else. They're not real strong on accessory apartments.
What are these things supposed to look like?
They're
What's the construction?
They're just a small kind of pod, a very, very little house that oftentimes can sit in the front of a house, and they do,
Like
you know,
a Clotter Farm barn or like a
Yeah.
Airstream camper?
kind of mix between, I guess you could
Okay.
say. But in the meantime, planning and zoning will probably readdress it. I think that based on what was talked about, there will be more discussion between some of the other commissions in the area as to how they want to approach it, to make sure that they're.
So it's on planning and zoning's agenda?
It was not brought up at the last meeting, we're obviously getting ready for our planning meeting, but it will come back. But there was no real strong feeling from the 4 commission members at the town meeting that it was something that they wanted to immediately opt out of. I think they are more comfortable with the fact that the regulatory process that they're looking at is a little bit more, how do I want to say, compassionate and open to unique circumstances by having accessory apartments and encouraging them, because you're having great success in this town.
Right. Do we need to like opt in or out by a certain time?
No. Well, good question. I did.
The newspaper said you had to, if you didn't opt out, you were in.
By when though?
Correct. That's a good question. So there's 2 parts. We have to take action to opt out, and I think, because I did hear this at one of the meetings I went to, that this was primarily designed for places that don't allow accessory apartments. So that's an important thing, because there are obviously some towns to the south of here that are much more, what's the nice word, stringent in their regulations of allowing accessory apartments or there, so they don't allow. So it got to the point where I believe the legislature was concerned that this was precluding people from, I mean, the choices they were given were to basically go to a nursing home and leave your house.
Right.
So that was pretty much what you're doing. So that's what they're trying to address with this, is give people the ability to put a temporary structure next to their house, and then the town, they have to get a bond, and then they put this thing in, and then they rent this or whatever. I believe there are companies that will actually construct these. They look like, a tiny house.
So who lives in the pod? Like
The pod and granny.
the person who would have otherwise
Right.
gone to the nursing home, or the caregiver?
It could be
Correct.
either.
Oh, it could be either way.
It could be,
It's either
but-
the caregiver or the person that would have gone, or the
But
elderly person.
the design is so you could have your invalid, and the person also has to have some medical condition. This isn't just, you can just do this because you're
Right.
a grandmother.
And who's the verifier of that? Does it go to a doctor or a
So that
or-
becomes some of the larger
That's
the
issues in
language.
terms of,
Who's the verifier?
determining the need.
Right.
And that can be difficult, but it can also be sensitive.
And if you don't opt out, can you opt out later? And/or if you opt out, can you un-opt out?
But so say someone came to you, say they said it was okay, we're not gonna opt out of this, and someone came to the board and they said, all right, I wanna put in this granny pod because, my elderly mother needs help, and so she's gonna go into this pod and this person's gonna live in the house and help be her caregiver. Is there a verification that you send
Yeah,
to a
there
doctor,
are
or
some-
does it, and
there
do
is some
you make that
forms of-
decision, or
I
is
think
it
it would probably have
go to the
mutual
state,
decision
or-
of the board
board?
and your zoning
Oh.
enforcement officer, but
Certified and ready,
By a physician, okay.
A physician, is that what it says?
Yeah, certified in writing by a physician licensed in the state. You have to have issues with 2 or more activities of daily living, including but not limited to bathing, dressing, grooming, eating, meal prep, shopping, house cleaning, transfers, bowel and bladder care, laundry, communication, self-administration of medication, and ambulation.
Sounds like long-term health care.
And
Right.
how long can the building be up?
I don't think there was a limit.
Yeah,
on that,
it's-
did I read?
There's more, it has to come down when the person leaves.
Right,
So
but
as
could
long
it
as
be
you are
10
in that
years,
condition,
20
you can do it.
years?
I don't think there's any
Doesn't
time
matter.
So
frame.
it's
Yeah.
gonna be 5 or 6 years.
It could be
Or
20
10 or
years
20.
if you're on, if that's the way.
Because it's
that-
not just elderly, it's a mentally or physically impaired person. So it could
So
be,
it could be your 19-year-old child.
like, yeah, it could be 50
Could be.
years, sure,
So it could totally change the character of your
of the
neighborhood.
town. Yeah, which is probably part of the concern of some of these other towns.
Again, you go, when Gordon spoke about accessory apartments, I live in New Hartford, we always had detached accessory apartments by special permit. I worked in Colebrook, strictly prohibited. Harlem, strictly prohibited. No detached accessory apartments. It's been very difficult because they've been built and they're all out there. But towns that tend to have more creative regulations in terms of accessory apartments for family members, or what you have in the town in terms of big properties in which that accessory apartment might be someone that takes care of the property as opposed to taking care of the person. But it seems like with the opportunities that we've gotten through the COG in terms of financing, and there's been 3 or 4 that has interfaced with the COG and the Jocelyn Air to be able to put accessory apartments in a very timely fashion, and it's creating housing opportunities, which is exactly what, when you go into the.
not restricted to this
Yeah, when you come to the planning meeting, when you hear about, the lack of housing for young people and for, limited finances and stuff, this is just one other piece that needs to be looked at, but I think that's why the Goshen chairman said there's no
Back to the
extenuating
original question.
circumstance.
We say,
If we don't do anything, we're in. We're in now, and as we go through this whole
Can
process.
you opt out later?
It sounds like you can opt, according to Pearlie,
You cannot
there were
opt out.
people said you have to do this or the sky's gonna fall on October 1st. Well, we're on October 3rd and the sky is still up. So his thing was, it says how you opt out, when you wanna opt out is up to the town, is his read. If we really wanna do it, he suggests we do it sooner rather than later, before you get your first application.
Right, right. Well,
If
that
that's really on your list of things to do.
But right now, if we got an application, we're in. It would have to be considered. We're not out
I think we,
as of today.
perhaps.
Why perhaps? Why
Well,
would it
again,
not
I'm not sure, this is when it's affected, and I'm not sure if we haven't even gone through our due diligence, whether we get an application tomorrow, whether we still have some time to do this. But I think we should consider
So
that.
as I say,
He
if
was- he-
if
he's a
we
little
opt
bit
out,
Right.
whoever makes the votes to opt out,
Right.
we opt out, and in 6 months after rereading it a few times, and and the legislature defines it a little better if they so choose to do that, can we opt in after we've opted out?
Well, we're in as of 2 days ago. A temporary healthcare structure shall be allowed as an accessory use in any single-family residential zoning district on a lot zoned for single-family detached dwellings that is owned by a caregiver or a mentally or physically impaired person and used as his or her residence.
What do they call them? Temporary healthcare what?
Temporary healthcare structure. It shall comply with all setback requirements, coverage limits, and maximum floor area ratio limitations that apply to accessory structures, so we already have that, which is good, as of October 1st, 2017. So if someone came in with an application tomorrow and met all those requirements, they can build it.
I think we would have to do some due diligence if we really want to prohibit this. We would certainly ask Pearlie to
Oh, no
review it.
doubt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we, like any new application, a new thing, we'd have to know what we're doing. We wouldn't just a rubber stamp, here you go.
Right, no, but I'm
if
just
that's really what we
saying,
want to do.
as of now, it is the law or the regulation.
I think there's a larger issue too, in that you have 5 acre zoning, 3 acre zoning, you're much more rural.
Yeah.
This has a lot more impact. When a granny pod, the only place it can sit is kind of between the sidewalk and the front door, the impact. But again, you go back to what is this really geared for? The state legislature is trying to make sure that there is some sort of housing and not making it so prohibitive in certain
Yeah, I
areas.
don't imagine it's an issue in the larger zones, it'll be more a thing, you know, around here in the villages where there's more concentrated housing and smaller lots. As long as planning and zoning is gonna look at it, that's where it starts anyway, right? And they make the recommendation to us. Yeah.
I should clarify, the occupant is the mentally or physically impaired person, not the caregiver.
Right. The caregiver lives in the house, the
The other person.
Oh, another
The
person.
person lives in the pod.
It's not either way, this
Right.
is how it's gonna be, okay.
I apologize, but accessory apartments can certainly.
Right,
be
accessory
local.
apartments is either way, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
In the end, though.
something got
it's
passed.
I don't think, if this passed, there's gonna be nobody from the town policing who's living in which building necessarily. I mean, you may do that once
That'll
or
be the
twice.
neighbors.
right.
Yeah, and then what if it is wrong? Then who's the policeman? You? As the
Whether it be-
enforcement officer?
Whether it be granny pods or Airbnb, it's
So,
got
or
to do it.
something, yeah.
But I also think that if you're already allowed to do accessory apartments, and if you have to meet setbacks anyway, that economically this is just a temporary thing. It may make more sense economically just to build an I can't see why you would rent at a fairly high rate a temporary thing that you've got to then get rid of when you're done, as opposed to put an addition on. But if somebody is at that stage of life where they feel this would help them, I'm not personally inclined to tell them that they can't do it. I think in a lot of ways the state has gotten so restrictive, and I know many people that have to use up their life savings if they go to a nursing home.
Yeah.
So if we can help people keep them in Cornwall, there's no nursing places about, if they can help people stay in Cornwall and save some of their money, then go for it. See what happens.
Yeah, it's a great idea as long as it doesn't end up getting abused, and you're never gonna know unless you see what happens.
Right. And
Something's gotta happen. I mean, the elderly population is just growing and growing and growing. I mean,
Right.
can't stay in their houses forever, unfortunately.
Okay, so any more thoughts on that?
Thanks
I
for
wouldn't.
staying and clarifying.
Right. Right. So whether Cornwall wants to permit these temporary structures to assist in the care of the elderly and disabled is a matter of public policy for the town of Cornwall to decide. So by us not pushing opting out, we're deciding at this point, we're saying
We will consider.
we will allow these. Okay, any other thoughts? Stay tuned.
Well, again, it's the state legislating how the town is supposed to conduct its business,
It's also only for an unpaid caregiver.
which probably means a family member.
Right, family member, legal guardian, or healthcare agent who is unpaid. Now that's a hard person to find.
Wow. Yeah, so how many of these actually get built and where they get built will be an interesting thing.
Well, the unpaid caregiver is probably the person living in the house, the family member, and then maybe they bring in other paid help. Doesn't say you can't have paid help, just the lead person probably can't be the only thing.
Right, as part of the household, yeah. Maybe.
Or your actual agent.
Okay,
It's a starting point.
all right, anything else on granny pod?
Clear as mud.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so then additions to the agenda, we had two. One is the Department of Commerce is looking for a census coordinator to assist them with the 2020 census. Currently, people are busy here with their tasks, so I have the idea that we could say to somebody that may have more time that they could take this job on. You have to have some training and help the federal government count heads in 2020. So I put that out there.
Can you do that?
I did census work.
This is actually different from the people going door to door.
I just
This
did
is
the door to door.
This
Door to door.
is this is the local official that just is the go-to person if the feds say we have a problem. Where's East Cornwall or something,
And I
right?
think
This is
that- and
this
at
is
this point, verifying that these are the roads in Cornwall,
Right.
because they have a list and you would be
And they're
looking at
willing
it,
to go.
verifying that those numbers are on that road is there, so that they'll know where to go look.
So what do you wanna do?
This would be a
Well,
town
throw it
person,
out.
somebody
Just
from,
a town get a volunteer that says they would be willing to be trained to help with the
Oh.
census as opposed to actually going door to door. So we put out a little
Sure.
Volunteer
Maybe
side.
somebody
They
wants
offer
to
a
do it.
workshop sometime in December.
Unpaid
something.
job.
no. This is volunteer.
I
Volunteer.
don't know if they-
And the actual door to door stuff is paid by the federal government. They want town representative.
If you were the town rep, could you also be a door to door and get paid?
I would think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the census stuff. Then on painting quotes, I did ask two firms, local firms, to give us quotes just to get a ballpark on doing the sand shed, the town garage, and the pavilion at Footfield, which has never been stained. So this would be staining those buildings and doing the work. There's doors that need to be painted in this building in the town office, and some trim work that needs to be repainted. So Kessel Brothers said they were too busy this fall. I did get a quote from Fox Painting today to do all those buildings. So
We have
Buildings-
one quote.
we have one quote,
the buildings for the salt
For how
shed.
much?
$11,000. It's actually the town hall, town office, salt shed, town garage,
What's
Yeah.
on the salt shed? So, or it
There's-
would just be that whole building?
the outside. So
The whole
actually,
big building?
yeah. So it's actually the stain is actually
buildings.
in really good shape on the north side, but not on the south, east, and west.
Right.
But it does need to happen.
Anything on the
quickly.
the transfer?
The transfer
station?
station was done 3 or 4 years ago, so we looked at that and that looks
So
good.
that's separate.
So we have to do some work inside the transfer station at some point.
So these are
Spring.
separate components to the
Yeah.
bid then.
Gordon, what about the new swap building?
That was stained when it was
It was
built.
unclear, right?
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Three sides, it's the barn, the town garage. Yeah, this goes back to maintaining the town buildings. You can churn it up pretty well.
Yeah.
This doesn't include whatever they find that's a problem that would be outside. You know,
Any
just-
rot or?
Right.
Yeah, you know, a piece of
Yeah.
this, a piece of that.
Only one coat.
But he's using, he said he really likes this arbor
Yeah,
coat.
arbor coat, yeah, that's good.
So I think that's a very reasonable.
Would it be sprayed or
Figure.
brushed?
I think it's,
Well, even if you spray it, you got a back brush, right?
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
That looks like for anybody.
And we gotta choose a color.
That's pretty much great, except for the town garage.
So what exterior of the town hall? This price is just for the trim and the doors that need to
Yeah.
be done?
Yeah.
Not all the trim. All the
Not all the trim, just where it's flaking off in the bad spots.
Sides of the sandbar. Town garage.
Do we have another quote, or you asked two, we only got one?
Right.
Can you fit this in now?
Yeah.
We're getting later in the season.
Yeah. But he said he's ready to roll.
I don't know, you think it's a little late for outside work, exterior work?
I think it's keep on going the way.
So
The way
damp
we're
in
going.
It's so damp in the mornings. And they're gonna have to wait till the sun is up and all the dew is off of the siding before they stain anything. or it's just gonna peel in 2 years. I mean, mid-October is not a good time to decide to paint something outside.
Painters paint until the end of December, end of November.
Yeah, and like I said, and then it's all peeling in 2-3 years. It's not really, it's not a good, not a good idea. I think his price is fair, I just think the timing's off.
Okay.
Existing colors.
Yeah,
Okay.
except there's no existing color on the pavilion there.
Right, what's he gonna go with? Yeah,
Gray.
just a gray.
Yeah. So I'd make a motion that we go ahead with this quote. Seems like a real reasonable price. Would be good to catch some of these things.
Well, you can do the prep work when it's still damp, and do the application, you know, after 10 or between 10 and 2,
Right.
10 and 3. If it warms up. I mean, today it got warm enough during the middle of the day.
As long as that's what really happens. So you're not gonna sit there and watch them.
Well, he's done good work for the town before, so I think he's pretty conscientious about doing his work. So is there a second to that?
I'll
motion?
second it. Remind them of that point.
I will. We're on the shorter part of the calendar.
And it may fit for him too. He looks at it as a couple of weeks of work that he can
Right.
fit. He's got a time slot he can fit in. He's got some people available to do it presumably,
Yeah,
whereas some other crew didn't or wouldn't.
right. Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
I'm gonna abstain just because I'm not happy with the timing.
Okay. Motion passes, 2 in favor, 1 abstention. Okay, next is public comment. Any public comments?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for the clarification on the item 3 on the public call. I think the questions that were raised at the last meeting led to greater transparency and information for all of us, and I thank you for that. I would ask you, I'm too concerned about the timing of the paint, but we have so many artists and talented people like that in town. Do we have to paint all the buildings gray? I mean, it just seems like, even DOT, the bridge in Cornwall Bridge, when I went to them and asked them, is ever going to paint that gray? And they actually went and asked one of the artists in Cornwall for what color would be best. And if you walk under that bridge in a foggy morning, you notice that the bridge blends right in with it. It's really interesting. And they were willing to consider color, and I think we ought to look at color and make our town as attractive as possible, even if the buildings are not in the center of the green. And I also had another question about how much money is there in the capital budget for improved technology and
For what?
equipment? How much money is there in the capital budget for improved technology?
What do you mean, computers?
Yeah.
Or for what? For where?
Whatever.
I mean, there is, the only place where that would come into play would be the consolidated school. They probably buy many
No,
more
I meant for the
computers.
town offices.
Because the only, when we buy computers, that's under the, there's an IT line under town operations. And this just covers expenses over $10,000, so it's pretty rare that we spend more than $10,000 on buying computers for the town. So it gets covered under the operating budget, not in the capital budget.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other public comments?
Yes, I didn't want, I would love to have said it when Vanity was here, but If you have a chance to go on Clock Road, it is such a treat. I went to check to replace the sign there, and I was tickled pink. It looks wonderful.
Yeah, go roller skating.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Okay. Very good. Any other public comment? Okay, next thing is bill payment.
That's it.
That's about it.
Sign check.